Waxon, Uxof. Don't know if you guys can see me yet. I never quite know with Facebook Live. There's always like this weird delay, but looks like we're good to go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Frankie Finn proudly brings to you our weekly Q&A. This is great. Kids are at the park right now at the playground, and I get to lay in bed here. And just so you guys know, on a couple of people have asked me if I'm doing any workshops and things like that. I usually just do them when I feel like it, but I've been considering offering like a free, or not a free, sorry, but a 1 week trial of the mastermind, because I know it's a year-long commitment, but just try it for 30 days. So if you'd be interested in that, that's the closest thing I have to a workshop right now. There's a lot of things that I'm working on kind of behind the scenes. We're growing an off-grid community here. I've also got, my actual agency. I do really have one of those, and I don't just teach this stuff. So I've got lawyers and that kind of stuff. So the 1 week or the 1 month trial of the mastermind is the closest thing I've got. Anyway, let's get into the weekly Q&A with a nice lazy Monday morning in bed. It's still 11 o'clock here, so it counts as morning. Sean asks, what's the most accurate tool for finding active citations for a business? I've always used Brightlocal, but recently Brightlocal numbers don't seem to match up with other audit systems. Sean, been a while since I've done that, so take this with a grain of salt. But I always liked WhiteSpark the best, whitespark.ca. I found they have the best tool for checking citations and then cleaning them up. Is a whole different ball game, but for at least getting accurate reporting, I found them to be by far the best source. So check out WhiteSpark. Trey, hey y'all, how was going in person to places of business worked out for y'all getting clients? Trey, here's the thing that nobody will tell you is that going face to face will definitely enhance client relationships. Having said that, the problem with that is it doesn't scale well. So depending on what you're trying to do, if you're just trying to get started and you're trying to get a few clients and get build a base and have a really awesome stable of clients to get going in person is great, and I would always suggest doing that, but it won't scale super well unless you're doing it one-to-many where you're speaking in front of an audience. But if you're just going to a conference and selling people one-to-one, it will work. It always works. Seeing people face-to-face, there is no substitute. But you can simulate a lot of this if you want to get to know your clients by just actually having a 10-minute Zoom call, and it'll be like getting to know each other. But definitely going face-to-face is a proven strategy if you got it as an option for you. Ravi, agencies with employees, how long is your work week? 5 days, 6 days, 7 days? Ravi, to be quite honest with you, I probably work 6 days a week, about 2 to 2.5 hours a day. So what does that work out? 15 hours a week is how much I run and kind of grow my agency. Now, having said that, it is not the employees that are taking up the time. In fact, I have some great people on my team. Some are actually in this group. And what I've found is that when it comes to managing employees, if you have repetitive work that you're doing, because you've narrowed your niche down and you're doing the same things for clients over and over so it scales well, and you have good systems and processes, there's actually very little input needed from clients. In fact, one of my employees just messaged me this morning and said, hey, I haven't been feeling well. I took a couple of days off, but I made up all the work. And I was like, well, that was the whole discussion, right? It's there's very little. If you're having it where employees are constantly asking you questions and need things from you and you have to be available to them, that means either your scope of work, meaning you're doing too many custom jobs, or then you don't have clear instructions for them, and therefore they're going to keep coming back to you and keep coming back to you. So it's almost always one of those two things. So your days of the week shouldn't matter based on how many employees. In fact, the more employees you have, the less you should work in a week, because you should be high-level strategy kind of person. Tim, starting a new ad agency, how do you differentiate your service from all the others doing the same thing? Tim, I'll give you my super-duper 3-step formula for differentiating. First, start with a broad niche. So dentists, doctors, lawyers, e-commerce, whatever appeals to you, online coaches. Pick somebody, and then think about that within that, there's always a concept in every niche I call the nickel and the $100 bill. The nickel is the volume work. So if you think about an online coach, if they sell a $500 course, or a $50 course, that's like their nickel. They could sell $50 courses all day long, but they probably wouldn't be profitable on, like, say, Facebook ads with that. They may have a $42,000 mastermind. Selling one $42,000 mastermind will get them more traction, will get them as much traction as 420 course sales. So if you can make a difference in them, you might as well go after the mastermind. So that's my, and then figure out your own unique system. So that's the 3 steps. Start with a broad niche, specialize in the $100 bill, figure out your own way of bringing them the $100 bills, and you will stand out from the noise, always, in any market, in any way, and you'll have your own way of doing that. Muaz, is there a specific framework you guys use for gratitude email campaigns to generate hefty referrals? Muaz, it's almost so simple that people like actually screw up gratitude campaigns, because what ends up happening is when you work on cold traffic, meaning people who've never heard of you, your copy has to be like really sizzling and on point and direct and clear and specific, and the offer has to be really, really badass. But having said that, when you're dealing with like a customer list and they've already bought, very, very, very little is needed in terms of copy and things like that. So where people screw it up is they put too much in there. So a gratitude campaign is really just 2 things. One is a sincere thank you. Number 2 is a value add. So I'll give you an example in the lawyer niche. One of the things we did, and this was when we used to work more with like other niches besides personal injury, but you have the law firm say like, hey, thank you to all their past clients. And then the second thing they do, by the way, is just like do a value add. And our value add was really, really simple. If you know somebody who's like, say, going through a divorce, here's a half-off gift certificate for a free consultation, or give them the whole consultation free and put it as like a $275 value so that they can get an hour of free legal service or advice and find out what the next step is and all that. That's it. It's really 2 things. It's just, and now when you asked about referrals specifically, I'll tell you what most people do wrong with referrals. There's 3 ways to get referrals, as best I can tell, after somebody's been your client. One is to hope and pray. I call that the referral fairy. That's what most businesses do. Like, you go to a restaurant, they think you'll just like the food so much, you'll just come back on your own. Very rarely works like that. The second thing is they kind of beg. They say, hey, if you know anybody, could you please help me out? And they make it about them. The third is to create a value add. And I learned this really amazingly is like a friend of mine who built a $16 million per year carpet cleaning company. They would give 3 gift certificates to each new person, and that person could give them to friends and family, and they would get 1 room cleaned for free. And what inevitably happens is a certain percentage of people who get the room cleaned for free say, what would it cost me to get this whole house done? And then they get a quote and they do it. But here's the thing, is that 1 free room is inherently valuable all on its own. So that's the magic of like referrals done right, is that you're adding value instead of like begging for it. So when you want to use your gratitude campaigns, think about how you can add value that leads into your overall service. Oral, I went full speed with the progress of my agency this summer, and it was too fast. Hired too many folks, tried to onboard too many clients, tested too many niches and ideas, scaled now down and slowed down a bit, feeling a bit better again. In the startup world where I'm coming from, there's a phenomenon called premature scaling. Guess this exists in the agency world too. I still want and will scale, but I learned a new agency is like a new love. I have to give her time. What are your thoughts? Well, I've said this to you before, Oral, in our group, is agency is the easiest business in the world to get started because you just need a laptop and somebody willing to let you do their marketing. So it's a very simple business to start, and it is one of the hardest businesses in the world to scale because it's like a purely service business, and the hardest part of it is actually the people themselves, their expectations, managing the humans, meeting requests, things like that. Like, humans make this very difficult, and for that reason, it's also the easiest business on planet Earth to build a prison, and it took me about 10 years to figure out how to really, like, get over that human part of it and make it, like, much more of a scalable enterprise and to take care of the humans. So what ends up happening is when you're feeling overwhelmed and there's too much going on, usually it's just a function of trying to do too many things at once, and so we always want to be like really, really strategic in our agency. So like just in the example I last gave, is a lot of people would say, well, why would you give away a free room of carpet cleaning? Because that costs money and that costs service. Well, it's very simple, because we know strategically a certain percentage of people who get the free room are going to become paying customers. Like if you go to Costco, they give away free samples all the time, and they do this because they know it's going to get more business. So almost always, if you're feeling overwhelmed, like there's too much to do, it's an issue of not like being strategic enough, and therefore you're like doing too many things and working way too hard. And I found like most of scaling an agency, like obviously there's a part of you that has to act and do things, but actually most of it is just being strategic enough. And I'll tell you, the biggest place most people aren't strategic enough in general, and I'm not saying this is the case with you, is they do custom work again and again. So I used to do this in the beginning. A plastic surgeon would say, could you rank my website? I would say yes. Then they would say, can you do Google AdWords? I would say yes. Then they would say, could you update my website? And I would say yes. And then they would say, you know, do you have any experience posting on social media? And I would say yes. And before I knew it, my agency had like 20 different things we were doing, and it made it really, really hard to scale. It was very overwhelming managing the work, and you constantly get put in this situation where, like, posting on social media, for example, it was easier just to do it myself than to explain to somebody. It would take me 20 minutes to do it to myself, and it would take me an hour and a half to explain to somebody how I would do it, and I would have to pay them on top of it. And so all the work and all the burden and all the overwhelm fell on me. Now how we have our agency set up is we're just really doing two things, and even two things is a lot. It's just because I'm an entrepreneur and I get bored and I have ADD, but really ideally you just want to have one main solution and start there, and then you're just delivering that one main solution over and over and over and over and over and over again. It's the same thing over and over and over and over again. And so it's not overwhelming because you're really just doing one thing 50 times rather than doing 50 different things. So that's the difference. When you're overwhelmed, you're almost always doing 50 different things one time. And what you want to do is think strategically, is like, how can I do one thing 50 times and get paid for that one thing over and over and over, even though the initial effort to create it only took me like one single effort. And when you do that, like, you'll have a lot more fun scaling and a lot less stress. So I want you to think about, because I know we talk a lot, one of the things is like, think about how you can both have scale and be easy, because a lot of times we think scaling has to be crazy, and it can be. I'm not saying it's not ever not crazy, but it can also be like a relatively like pain-free process that just works because your strategic thinking is so dialed in. Christopher, what's a reasonable price to charge for a 5-page WordPress website? Christopher, I would say, like, you know, typically most people are probably charging like $250 a page. But having said that, I would not think about like, how can I price my stuff reasonably? That's how you get into, like, you know, driving your prices down, and there'll always be somebody cheaper who can make that. I would think about, how can I make my 5-page WordPress site more valuable? And I'll tell you, the biggest thing you can do is what we talked about earlier. If you're going to make a website, all things being equal, aim it at the right who has money. So let me give you an example. If you're building a coaching website to sell a $29 intro course, then that's going to be different than if you build a coaching website to sell a $42,000 mastermind. All things being equal, by the way, it's the same amount of work to sell a $29 course as it is a $42,000 mastermind. There might be nuances that are different, and the copy might have to be a little longer. But overall, it's not really all that much difference from a design perspective. So you might as well think about that. I noticed this first in plastic surgery. People would come to us, and I didn't come up with the idea, but plastic surgeons would say, hey, can you make me a mini website just for nose jobs, or a mini website just for facelifts, or a mini website just for mommy makeover surgeries? And what I found out, those were their highest value work. That's why they wanted to create mini websites. And almost inevitably, we would get more money for a mini website, but we were still doing all the same like WordPressy things and installing Yoast and plugins like that. And so if you can do that, what you'll find is you can raise your prices, because the question shouldn't be, in my opinion anyway, what's a reasonable price to charge? Is like, how can I get more money for what I'm doing by adding more value to this equation? And then what you'll find is people will pay you more money. Josh, what has been your greatest motivator? Freedom for me, and obviously my children, since I've had them. But you know, in the beginning, there's a joke that says we're the only people who work 80 hours a week, so that we don't have to work 40 hours a week for someone else. And I remember the magic number for me. I was just like, when I first started, I was like, if I can just get to $5,000 a month, I will not need a job, and that would be so awesome if I just could get there. And then when I did, it was just like, you know, realizing that I would never have to go back to that bullshitty corporate world. And, you know, now we get to do it by like doing things like, I can go to the beach on a Tuesday afternoon, or lay in bed and make a video for you guys. Like I never used to be able to lay in bed at 11 o'clock, but you get to do those things. So freedom is a huge motivator once you get a nice taste of it. Daryl, getting access to client accounts is one of my biggest pain points early on. What solutions have you found to overcome this? Please no DMs. My inbox is at capacity. Daryl, if you're finding your onboarding is too much, either you need to like reduce processes or you need to use something like Leadsy.io. It makes it so you just have to send people 1 to 2 links. Like you connect your app to Facebook and stuff. I've never actually used it personally, but a couple people I know do. It makes that whole onboarding thing a whole bunch simpler. I think it's about $50 a month or something like that. But if you're doing a fair amount of onboarding and it's just like it's draining the fucking life out of you, then you probably need to get Leadsy or something similar. But I'd also look at like how can you like simplify what you're doing before you like automatically outsource it to Leadsy. Tahar. Hi guys, is it normal? I spent $70 on one campaign, had no sales for 2 days, or do I need to do something? Tahar, this is one of the hardest things when you're first getting started, which it sounds like you are, which is understanding what it takes to make paid ads work. Is usually I expect if I'm testing a brand new offer with paid ads, I expect to lose a few $1,000s before I get it in anywhere even close to the positive. So, this is a nice way of saying $70 isn't shit. And you can't just expect you'll spend $70 and become a millionaire. It doesn't generally work like that. If you're on a tight budget and $70 is a lot, then I would suggest test your offers organically before you do paid ads. In fact, I usually do this anyway. Most of my offers, by the time I turn them into paid ads, I've already tested them on real people, either on LinkedIn or just like contacts I have in the space and all that. So like people have already bought the offer, and so I know it's already working. And then I bring it to paid ads, and then my paid ads usually work day one. But it's because I've tested them like with real life people. I've taken my strikeouts and had that for free. So if you're in a situation where you don't really have a budget, like go test it organically on the same kind of people you're trying to target with paid ads, and get it dialed in. Okay, Bailey asks, hey guys, I've now spent over 1,000 Australian dollars on ads and for little to no return. Under 5 conversions, I'm looking for some help that will help try to convert customers into buying. It's a new pixel, so it has no data, and the customers I'm selling both clothing and watches. I understand it is a competitive space, but you'd assume that the return would be a little better than this. Just wondering what I'm doing wrong. Any help is appreciated. If more photos or info is required, please let me know. Eager to learn. Bailey, I understand, like kind of same situation as the last one. You spend a bunch of money on paid ads, and now you got nothing to show for it, and you're losing money, and that's pretty stressful. I feel you. I got to give you the big old hug for that one. Now, here's the thing, Bailey, is that you just mentioned you're in a competitive space. So I'll tell you the biggest thing with this is figuring out how you can make your clothing and watches stand out from the noise. Like I've had probably, I don't know, a couple dozen friends try and get into the t-shirt space, and it's a low margin and everybody's selling t-shirts. And if you don't have like a unique t-shirt, like whether it be like, maybe it could be a niche TV show, like I watch sometimes Family Guy to fall asleep, right? Like if you had Family Guy themed t-shirts, that would be a reason to stand out from the noise. So more than likely it ain't your ads, it's not your targeting, it's not all those things. I know people will tell you try this and try that, but almost likely it's just a positioning thing, is that you're not different enough in the marketplace and valuable and different enough. So think about like really, really long and hard giggity. How you can position both your clothing and watches as like unique and different. If you do that, you'll have much, much better success, because it's very likely not a targeting, not a Facebook ads. It's just like there's too many, like I don't get excited about a watch or clothing personally. Like there's just so much of it. So it would have to be something like really, really unique. And maybe even if you just have like 1 or 2 specialty products in there that are really, really unique. But having said that, you've had 5 conversions, right? So I would pay attention to what are those 5 conversions coming from, because those are probably leading you to at least where that is. And one of the things you can do that not enough people do is ask your customers why they bought that from you. Say, hey, if you don't mind me asking, we're just a little curious, like what made you buy this? Once you get that in, you'll be able to really dial in your ad copy, because they'll tell you exactly what made them buy, and then you'll just write stronger ads. So that's all I got for you guys this week. That's all our magic questions. If you guys have anything else, you can always like shoot me a PM or post it in the group. As well, like I said, I'm thinking about doing a 1-month trial offer to the mastermind for for those of you guys, because I know a lot of you guys have been asking me about workshops, but I've just been really busy and haven't had time to do extra workshops. We're like really like very hardcore checking out land and stuff around here and kind of like building a farm and things like that. So I just haven't had time to do anything like that. I kind of do them when I feel like it and when it's fun. And if you guys want to be part of something cool, like we've had pretty amazing experiences with people who've, you know, built up their agency and scaled it to more than 6 figures a month. We've had people take their families on vacations. We've had people who've like built real freedom-based agencies who have offers who now stand out from the noise, where it's now like swimming downstream instead of upstream, where things just like are easier again and things like that. So if you guys are interested in that, I can send you some details. We got a little video. I'll shoot you over the video. But other than that, that's all I got for you guys today. May the force be with you. Okay.